In 2025, a team of geneticists at the University of Edinburgh uncovered something that shouldn't exist. After years of sequencing ancient remains from the Scottish Highlands, Orkney and the Isle of Skye, their data began to whisper a story older than history itself. They expected to find the usual signatures: Celtic farmers, Norse settlers, maybe even fragments of Roman or Viking DNA. But what they discovered went far beyond the timeline of civilization. Buried in those samples were genetic sequences that predated not just Scotland but Europe itself. Fragments of DNA that diverged over 45,000 years ago. They didn't belong to Neanderthals. They didn't belong to Denisovans. They belonged to something, or someone, else. At first, the team assumed contamination, but every control test came back clean. Then they found environmental DNA, preserved in sea cave sediments near Oban, carrying the same impossible markers, traces of human presence dating 10,000 years before the Ice Age ended, when this land was supposedly buried under a mile of ice. The evidence defied logic. Humans weren't supposed to be here. The glaciers should have made life impossible. And yet the DNA said otherwise. Someone had lived, hunted, and left their mark in Scotland when the rest of Europe was still frozen wasteland. Who were they? A lost branch of Homo sapiens? A hybrid population that survived extinction while the rest of the world reset? The data offered no names, no bones, no tools, only genetic echoes. But one thing was certain. The Scottish Highlands were never empty. They were alive, guarding a secret older than humanity's recorded story. What these mountains preserved may rewrite not just Scottish history, but the origin of humankind itself. I'm on a road to get 2,000 subscribers. Please subscribe. Across the wind-swept islands of Orkney, ruins older than Egypt rise from the soil. The stone dwellings of Skara Brae, the standing circles of Callanish, and the graves of people whose names were never written down. For centuries, archaeologists believed these builders were simple farmers, descendants of Neolithic migrants who trickled north from Europe. But the DNA tells a far stranger story. Inside the bones of those buried at Skara Brae, geneticists discovered something no one expected: a mixture of Near Eastern farmer genes, local Mesolithic hunter ancestry, and a third component that doesn't match any known population. A ghost lineage, neither European nor African, diverging before modern humans fully replaced archaic species like the Denisovans. It wasn't just a random anomaly. The same genetic signature appeared in remains from the Hebrides and the Western Highlands, isolated islands separated by hundreds of kilometers. Wherever ancient stone circles stood, this mysterious ancestry followed. Even stranger, the architecture itself seemed to echo memories of distant worlds. The alignment of the Callanish stones mirrors the patterns of the stars. The same celestial map carved into the stones of Malta, Brittany, and Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. Separated by continents, yet all watching the same sky in the same way. How could isolated islanders in prehistoric Scotland share astronomical precision with civilizations thousands of miles away? The DNA may hold the answer. These weren't primitive builders. They were hybrids, carriers of knowledge older than Europe, a people who blended the bloodlines and wisdom of lost civilizations before vanishing beneath the mist of time. Scotland was never a forgotten corner of the ancient world. It was a crossroads, where humanity's deepest memories converged and were set in stone. Quite literally. Every nation has its legends. Scotland has living memories carved into myth, stories of radiant tribes who came from the north of the world, warriors painted in spirals of blue, and kings who spoke with the gods. To historians, they were symbols. To geneticists, they are data waiting to be decoded. In the myths, the Tuatha De Danann arrived from the clouds. The Picts were said to descend from a race untouched by time. They were called the Painted People, the Ancient Ones, keepers of secrets so old even the Celts could not name them. When archaeologists excavated early Pictish burial sites in the northeast, They expected Celtic DNA. What they found was something entirely different. The Pictish genome didn't match any known European population. It carried rare haplogroups seen only in the far Arctic, faintly echoing Siberian and circumpolar peoples, as if their ancestors had crossed frozen bridges from Asia tens of millennia before. The Picts weren't late arrivals. They were remnants, survivors of an Ice Age migration the rest of Europe forgot. In Gaelic lore, glowing boats appeared on northern shores, carrying strangers from islands of eternal light. Until recently, this was dismissed as metaphor. But those same mitochondrial lineages now link ancient Scotland to prehistoric sailors from the North Atlantic and the Norwegian coast. The stories of shining vessels and otherworldly visitors might not describe gods at all, but explorers, returning after oceans receded. The myths remember them as immortals. The DNA remembers them as ancestors. And between legend and genome, a single truth emerges. The tribes of Scotland were not separate peoples, but converging worlds. Arctic wanderers, Mediterranean seafarers, and forgotten Europeans, meeting where the mountains kiss the sea. The Highlands of Scotland are more than a landscape. They are a biological time capsule. Every valley, every glen holds the genetic footprints of civilizations that vanished elsewhere. When modern Scots donated their DNA for research, scientists noticed something unusual. Highland and island populations carried rare genetic markers never seen in England, Ireland, or Scandinavia. At first, these were dismissed as isolation effects, the product of small, tight-knit communities. But deeper sequencing told another story. Hidden within their genomes were segments of archaic DNA, not Neanderthal, not Denisovan, but something even older. A third, unidentified hominin lineage that contributed to the ancestors of modern Scots before the end of the Ice Age. These fragments are most concentrated in genes that control oxygen efficiency, muscle endurance, and neural function. They give highland populations an unusual resilience to cold, a natural aptitude for navigation, and a slower rate of muscular fatigue in harsh climates. One variant, found only in remote western clans, appears to enhance spatial cognition, the ability to perceive and map complex environments. It's the kind of adaptation you'd expect from people who once navigated ice, stars, and sea without instruments. When researchers modelled the population history, the pattern was unmistakable. Scotland wasn't colonised after the Ice Age. It endured it. While most of Europe was erased and repopulated, the Scottish Highlands remained a refuge, a fortress for both people and their DNA. One geneticist described it best. The Highlands didn't just preserve culture. They preserved memory, biological memory of the first humans who called this frozen land home. These mountains, these lochs, these ancient stones. They don't just remember battles and kings. They remember the dawn of humanity itself. I'm on a road to get 2,000 subscribers. Please subscribe. The story of Scotland isn't carved in history books. It's written in blood, stone, and sky. From the Ice Age wanderers who crossed frozen seas to the builders of Skara Brae and the painted warriors of the Picts, every generation left its mark, not on parchment but in the double helix. Within Scottish DNA lies a record of human endurance, genes that remember ancient oceans, forgotten suns, and civilizations swallowed by ice and time.